I stare at the wedding invitation in my hands, fingers trembling slightly. After 9 years of silence, Harper wants me at her wedding. I'm Arletta, 27 years old, and the last time I saw my family was when they threw me out on my 18th birthday to make room for my pregnant sister. The memories still sting like an open wound. Now she's marrying some wealthy businessman, and suddenly I'm worth remembering. Part of me wants to tear the invitation to pieces. Part of me wants to see them face to face. Little did they know that karma was about to strike back in the most spectacular way. Let me know where you're watching from and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever witnessed karma come full circle. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for how this story ends. My childhood home in rural Minnesota was modest but comfortable. 4 bedrooms, a backyard with enough space for tag and catch, and a tire swing my father Frank hung from the sturdy oak tree. My mother Diane was a homemaker with deeply traditional values about family and appearance. Dad worked as a supervisor at the local manufacturing plant, bringing home steady paychecks and strict rules about behavior. Harper came into the world when I was 3 years old. My earliest memories include peering into her crib, fascinated by her tiny fingers and the way she would grip my index finger with surprising strength. Those first years, we were close in the way sisters often are, when the age gap is small enough to share toys but large enough that I could feel protective and important. "You're her big sister," Mum would say. "You have to set a good example." I took that responsibility seriously. When Harper took her first steps, I was the one holding out my arms for her to toddle toward. I taught her the alphabet song and how to tie her shoes. In those early years, our relationship was simple and sweet. The shift happened so gradually that I can't pinpoint when exactly things changed. Perhaps it started when Harper entered elementary school. She was naturally outgoing, making friends easily with her bubbly personality and infectious laugh. I was more reserved, preferring books and quiet activities. Our parents began commenting on the differences. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" became a common refrain when I declined neighborhood games or birthday party invitations. By the time Harper reached middle school, her natural athletic abilities became apparent. She excelled at softball, especially her coordination and reflexes, earning her a spot on competitive teams. Our parents never missed a game, rearranging work schedules and social commitments to cheer from the bleachers. Meanwhile, my academic achievements, straight A's, science fair wins, perfect attendance, were acknowledged with distracted nods and obligatory good jobs that felt hollow. When I made the honor roll in 8th grade, neither parent attended the ceremony because it conflicted with Harper's regional softball tournament qualifier. "You understand, don't you, sweetheart?" Mum said, patting my shoulder. "This is a big opportunity for Harper." I nodded because what else could I do? I understood even then that my accomplishments would always take second place. The disparity extended to material things as well. Harper received new clothes for each school year, carefully selected outfits that followed current trends. I wore her hand-me-downs when they fit or clearance items grabbed hastily during rare shopping trips. "You're not as particular about clothes anyway," Mum would say when I occasionally expressed disappointment, "and you're so good at making things work." The summer before my sophomore year of high school, our family had planned a trip to the Wisconsin Dells, a vacation we'd saved for over 2 years. 2 weeks before departure, Harper's travel team qualified for a tournament in Chicago, scheduled the same week. The vacation was cancelled without discussion. "We can go next year," Dad promised, though next year never came. Through it all, I tried to maintain my relationship with Harper. Despite the jealousy that sometimes flared when she received the newest phone model while I used Mum's hand-me-down, or when family conversations revolved around her latest game or social triumph, I still loved my sister. We shared late-night talks in our adjacent bedrooms, occasional shopping trips to the mall, where we'd split a cinnamon pretzel, and inside jokes, a commerce, that could make us dissolve into laughter with just a word or phrase. High school amplified our differences further. Harper's beauty blossomed early, long blonde hair, clear skin, and an athletic figure that drew attention from classmates and even teachers. She began dating Jason Taylor, the quarterback of our school's football team, during her freshman year. Meanwhile, I focused on academics, joining debate team, and taking every advanced placement course available. My parents' pride in Harper's social success was evident in how they bragged about her relationship with Jason to neighbors and co-workers. "His family owns half the car dealerships in the county," Mum would say meaningfully, as if his family's wealth somehow reflected on ours. My 18th birthday approached during the spring of senior year. I had applied to 7 colleges, received acceptance letters from 5, and was awaiting news about potential scholarships. Despite years of taking second place in my family's attention and resources, I remained optimistic about my future. I had plans for celebration, nothing extravagant, just dinner with a few friends and maybe a movie afterward. What I didn't know was that my birthday would mark the end of my life as I knew it, and the beginning of a journey I never expected to take. I woke up on May 15th with that special birthday excitement. 18 felt significant. I could vote, sign legal documents, officially begin my adult life. The morning sun streamed through my curtains as I stretched and savored the moment before getting out of bed. On my dresser sat a small wrapped package that my friend Tasha had given me the day before, with strict instructions not to open until my actual birthday. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a book charm referencing our shared love of reading. I clasped it around my wrist, admiring how it caught the light. College acceptance letters were pinned to my bulletin board, tangible proof that my hard work was paying off. State University had offered a partial scholarship that would cover about half my tuition. Not enough to fully ease the financial burden, but a start. I dressed carefully in my favorite jeans and a new blue sweater I'd saved babysitting money to buy. Downstairs, I expected at least a happy birthday from my parents, maybe a special breakfast or small gift. Instead, I found them sitting solemnly at the kitchen table, with Harper an unusual sight on a school morning when everyone typically rushed through breakfast. "Sit down, Arletta," my father said, his voice tight. "We need to have a family meeting." The atmosphere was heavy, and my birthday excitement immediately dampened. I took a seat across from Harper, who wouldn't meet my eyes. Her face was puffy like she'd been crying. "What's going on?" I asked, looking between them. My mother reached across the table and took Harper's hand. "Your sister has something to tell you." Harper finally looked up, tears welling in her eyes. "I'm pregnant," she whispered. The news hit like a physical blow. Harper was 16, still in high school, with her whole life ahead of her. Jason was the father, she confirmed when I asked. They had been careful, she insisted, but apparently not careful enough. My parents had clearly known before this meeting. Their reactions were past the initial shock stage. My mother's face showed concern about how this would affect the family's reputation in our conservative community. My father's jaw was set in the way it did when he was angry, but trying to control it. "We've decided Harper will keep the baby," Mom said firmly. "She and Jason will finish school, will help with the baby." Not once during this conversation did anyone acknowledge that it was my birthday. The day I had been looking forward to had been completely overshadowed by Harper's situation. I sat there silent and invisible as they discussed doctor's appointments, telling Jason's parents and school arrangements. I went through the school day in a daze. Friends wished me happy birthday. Teachers commented on the milestone. But my thoughts kept returning to Harper's news and my family's reaction. I understood the gravity of the situation, but couldn't help feeling hurt by how thoroughly my special day had been forgotten. When I returned home that afternoon, I found my mother measuring Harper's bedroom with a tape measure. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Planning." "Yup," she replied without looking up. "We need to make space for a crib and changing table." Later that evening, after a dinner where Harper picked at her food and no one mentioned my birthday, my parents called me into the living room. Harper sat on the couch looking uncomfortable. "We need to discuss living arrangements," my father began without preamble. I nodded, assuming they were going to talk about converting the home office to a nursery or perhaps some renovations to accommodate the baby. "Harper's room is too small for her and a baby," Mum continued. "She needs more space." "Okay," I said slowly, not yet understanding where this was heading. Dad cleared his throat. "Your room is bigger. It would be more suitable." The implication hit me. "You want me to switch rooms with Harper?" "Well, not exactly," Mum said, exchanging glances with Dad. "We thought since you'll be going to college soon anyway, that maybe what? Maybe you could move down to the basement storage room," Dad finished. "We could fix it up a bit." I stared at them in disbelief. The basement was unfinished with concrete floors and walls that sweated moisture when it rained. It had a single bulb for lighting and was currently filled with boxes, old furniture, and holiday decorations. Or, Mum added as if offering a generous alternative, "You could just move on early to college. You're 18 now after all." "Move on? Where exactly?" I asked, my voice rising. "The dorms don't open until August, and I can't afford an apartment." "Don't take that tone," my father warned. "We're trying to find solutions here. Your sister is in a difficult situation." "And I'm not," I countered. "It's my birthday today, which none of you have acknowledged, and now you're suggesting I move to the basement or become homeless." Don't be so dramatic, Mum sighed. It's not homelessness, it's independence. Independence without preparation or support. My voice cracked with emotion. What about my college plans? I was counting on living here until fall. Plans change, Dad said firmly. Family has to adjust. I'm family too, I cried. The argument escalated from there. When I refused to accept their solution, my father's face darkened with anger. You have two choices, he said finally. Accept the new arrangements or leave. You'd throw me out, I asked, stunned. On my birthday. You're making this choice, not us, Mum said coldly. I looked at Harper, silently pleading for her to say something to stand up for me. She kept her eyes fixed on the floor, one hand protectively over her still flat stomach. Fine, I said, my voice hollow. I'll leave. My mother disappeared upstairs and returned with 2 black garbage bags. For your things, she explained, as if this were a perfectly normal thing to offer your daughter on her 18th birthday. I packed quickly, tears blurring my vision, as I stuffed clothes, school supplies, and a few precious books into the garbage bags. My hands shook so badly I dropped my small jewelry box, scattering earrings across the carpet. I left most of them there. As I dragged the bags downstairs, I kept expecting someone to stop me to say this had gone too far. No one did. My father stood by the door, arms crossed. My mother busied herself in the kitchen, avoiding my eyes. Harper remained on the couch, silent and watching. Where will you go? Harper finally asked as I reached for the door handle. I had no answer. I walked out into the cool spring evening, my entire life reduced to 2 garbage bags. My car, an ancient Honda Civic I'd purchased with babysitting money, sat in the driveway. I threw the bags in the back seat and got behind the wheel, not yet knowing where I would go, but knowing I couldn't stay another minute in that house. That night, I slept in my car in the Walmart parking lot, 18 years old and homeless on my birthday. The first week of homelessness was a crash course in survival I never expected to need. I parked in different locations each night, the 24-hour Walmart lot behind the library, the far corner of the hospital parking garage, afraid of drawing attention or being reported. I washed up in gas station bathrooms, changing clothes hunched in the back seat of my Honda. Each morning I reported to school as if nothing had changed, hiding my situation from classmates and teachers. By day 5, exhaustion and hunger were taking their toll. I fell asleep during AP Calculus, something that had never happened before. My teacher, Ms. Patterson, asked me to stay after class. Arletta, is everything all right? This isn't like you. Something in her kind, concerned expression broke the dam I'd built around my emotions. The whole story came pouring out: my birthday, Harper's pregnancy, being given garbage bags and told to leave. Ms. Patterson listened without interruption, her expression shifting from concern to disbelief to anger. When I finished, she took a deep breath and said something I'll never forget. You'll stay with me until graduation. No arguments. Ms. Patterson lived alone in a small bungalow about 2 miles from school. She cleared out her home office, set up an air mattress, and gave me a key. Her only conditions were that I focus on finishing school strong and help with household chores. I agreed immediately, overwhelmed by her generosity. With a safe place to sleep, I turned my attention to financial survival. I found a morning shift at the local diner, arriving at 5 a.m. to help with breakfast service before school. After classes, I worked at the grocery store, stocking shelves until closing. Weekends were spent cleaning rooms at the Budget Inn on the highway. Between the 3 jobs, I managed to save enough for basic necessities and begin building a fund for college expenses. Meanwhile, life in my hometown continued without me. I occasionally glimpsed my parents at the grocery store or gas station, but they would turn away when they saw me, pretending not to notice their eldest daughter. The one time I gathered courage to approach them in the hardware store, my father muttered something about respecting their space and walked away, my mother following without a backward glance. Harper was harder to avoid in the hallways of our shared high school. She would meet my eyes briefly sometimes, offering a small, uncertain smile before being swept along by her friends or Jason. Her pregnancy became visible as weeks past her condition, the subject of school gossip. Some teachers gave her special accommodations, others clearly disapproved. Through social media, I saw photos of her baby shower, hosted at our home, my former bedroom transformed with pink decorations, and a white crib where my desk had once stood. 2 months after being thrown out, I made one attempt at reconciliation. I drove to my parents' house on a Sunday afternoon when I knew everyone would be home. My mother answered the door, her expression freezing when she saw me. "What do you want?" she asked, not inviting me in. "To talk," I said. I miss you all. Maybe we can work something out. She glanced over her shoulder, then stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind her. This isn't a good time. Harper's having a difficult pregnancy. Stress isn't good for the baby. And what about stress for me? I asked, fighting to keep my voice steady. You've made your choice, she said, as if I had been the one to throw myself out. You seem to be managing fine. When I left, I saw Harper watching from her bedroom window, my old bedroom window. She raised her hand in a small wave but made no move to come down or call me back. Ms. Patterson became my rock during those final high school months. She helped me apply for emergency financial aid, wrote glowing recommendation letters, and connected me with college resources for independent students. When my scholarship from State University was increased, based on my updated financial situation, she was the one who celebrated with me buying sparkling cider and cupcakes. Graduation day arrived with no family in the audience to cheer as I received my diploma with highest honours. Ms. Patterson whooped loudly enough for an entire family when my name was called. I later learned my parents and Harper had skipped the ceremony entirely for a prenatal appointment that could easily have been rescheduled. With high school behind me, I needed to establish myself before college began in fall. Ms. Patterson suggested I move to the college town early to find housing and work. She helped me search for affordable apartments online, eventually finding a listing for a 2-bedroom unit, seeking a second roommate to split costs. The roommate turned out to be Zoe Garcia, a sophomore graphic design major, with bright blue hair and an apartment full of plants. She accepted me immediately after our first meeting over coffee. My last roommate was a nightmare, she confessed. You seem normal and responsible. Plus, you don't have a pet python, which is already an improvement. Moving day consisted of loading my few possessions into my Honda and hugging Ms. Patterson goodbye with promises to stay in touch. As I drove the 90 miles to my new home, I finally cut the last emotional ties to my family. I blocked their numbers, removed them from social media, and decided to focus entirely on building my new life. I had survived being thrown away like trash on my 18th birthday. Now it was time to thrive. State University's sprawling campus became my new world that fall. The red brick buildings, tree-lined walkways, and constant activity were a stark contrast to the quiet small town I'd left behind. I embraced every aspect of college life with the enthusiasm of someone who understood its value because I'd nearly lost the opportunity. Financial reality meant I couldn't enjoy the carefree experience many freshmen had. While classmates attended parties and joined clubs, I worked 30 hours weekly between the campus coffee shop and weekend shifts at a local restaurant. Every dollar was carefully budgeted for rent, food, books, and savings. Still, I managed to maintain a perfect GPA that first semester, often studying late into the night after closing the coffee shop. Zoe became more than just a roommate. She was my introduction to having genuine friendship without the shadow of comparison that had colored my relationship with Harper. She never competed with me, never made me feel less than. Instead, she celebrated my successes and comforted my occasional moments of sadness. Family isn't always blood, she told me one night when homesickness had unexpectedly hit despite everything. Sometimes it's the people who actually show up for you. Through Zoe, I met her circle of friends who welcomed me without question. Our apartment became the gathering place for weekly study sessions that often evolved into movie nights or impromptu dance parties. For the first time, I experienced belonging without having to earn it or compete for it. That first Thanksgiving away from home was difficult despite everything. Zoe, noticing my mood as the holiday approached, invited me to join her family in Chicago. Fair warning, she said, my abuela will try to fatten you up, my cousins will ask inappropriately personal questions, and my dad will make terrible jokes. But the food is amazing, and they're big on taking in strays. She was right on all counts. The Garcia household was chaotic, loud, and overflowing with warmth. Mrs. Garcia indeed tried to fill my plate multiple times, concerned by my too skinny frame. By the end of the weekend, I had been taught to make proper tamales, acquired several new sweaters that various family members insisted I needed, and received an open invitation to return any time. For my 19th birthday, the first since being thrown out, Zoe organized a surprise gathering at our apartment. No elaborate gifts, just thoughtfully selected small items, a plant for my windowsill, a leather journal, colorful socks. The simple celebration, with people who genuinely cared about me, healed something that had been broken the year before. Occasionally, news from my hometown would reach me through mutual acquaintances or social media connections I hadn't severed. Harper had given birth to a daughter named Lily in late summer. There were photos of my parents proudly holding their granddaughter of Harper and Jason's small wedding in our church of the nursery, that had once been my bedroom, now fully decorated with pink elephants and white furniture. These glimpses into the life I'd been excluded from still hurt, but the pain grew duller with time and distance. I focused instead on building my own success story. During sophomore year, I took an introductory marketing class with Professor Jenkins, whose dynamic teaching style and real-world experience captured my imagination. She noticed my aptitude for the subject and my work ethic, often asking me to stay after class to discuss concepts further. "You have a natural talent for understanding consumer psychology," she told me one day. "Have you considered specializing in marketing?" That conversation changed my academic trajectory. I declared marketing as my major and took every relevant course Professor Jenkins offered. When she recommended me for a competitive internship at Meridian Marketing during junior year, it felt like another piece of my new life clicking into place. The internship quickly evolved into a part-time position that continued through the remainder of my college years. The experience gave me professional connections, practical skills, and the confidence that comes from being valued for your contributions. Meanwhile, my personal growth continued in therapy sessions provided through the University Health Centre. For an hour each week, I unpacked the family dynamics that had shaped me, the abandonment trauma, and the lingering feelings of inadequacy that sometimes surfaced despite my successes. "Your parents failed you," my therapist Dr. Lynn stated simply in one breakthrough session. "Not because you were unworthy of love and support, but because they were incapable of providing it equally to both daughters. That's their failure, not yours." Those words became a mantra during difficult moments. Their failure, not mine. Their failure, not mine. Dating was complicated by trust issues, understandably. I had a few brief relationships that ended when emotional intimacy became too frightening. Then during junior year, I met Daniel in a literature elective class I'd taken to fulfill a humanities requirement. Our connection developed slowly, first as study partners, then friends, eventually something more. Daniel had his own complicated family story involving his parents' bitter divorce and subsequent custody battle. His understanding of family dysfunction created a safe space for sharing my experiences without judgment. "We can't change where we came from," he said one night as we walked across the moonlit campus after studying late. "But we get to decide where we're going and how we get there." By senior year, Daniel and I were seriously involved, spending most nights at either his apartment or mine. We talked about future plans with the careful optimism of people who had learned not to take stability for granted. When we graduated, me with honours in marketing, him with a degree in environmental science, we decided to stay in the same city, finding jobs, and eventually a small apartment to share. The last connection to my past arrived unexpectedly that December, a Christmas card, addressed to me at my new apartment, though I hadn't shared the address with anyone from my hometown. Inside was a generic holiday message and family photo, my parents, Harper, Jason, and a toddler, Lily, in matching Christmas sweaters. No personal note, no acknowledgement of the years of silence, just a mass-produced card that could have been sent to any distant acquaintance. I studied my niece's face in the photo, searching for traces of the sister I once knew, wondering what this child had been told about her absent aunt. Then I placed the card in my desk drawer and returned to decorating the Christmas tree, with Daniel focusing on the family I was choosing to build. By 25, my career at Meridian Marketing had advanced rapidly through a combination of talent, dedication, and the drive that comes from having something to prove. My promotion to marketing director made me one of the youngest executives in the company's history, a fact that was highlighted in the local business journal's 30 Under 30 feature. Daniel and I had moved from our starter apartment to a modest but charming house in a developing neighborhood. The mortgage payments were a stretch, but manageable between our two salaries. We spent weekends painting walls, replanting the neglected garden, and gradually transforming the space into a true home, something I hadn't experienced since being thrown out 7 years earlier. "We should get a dog," Daniel suggested one Sunday as we sat on our newly built deck admiring our landscaping efforts. Complete the whole domestic picture. I was considering this idea when my phone chimed with an email notification. The sender's address made my heart stop momentarily. harpertaylor@gmail.com. After years of silence, my sister was reaching out. The email sat unopened for several hours while I processed my feelings. Curiosity eventually won out over apprehension. The message was brief but loaded with implications. Arletta, I hope this finds you well. It's been too long and I take responsibility for that. I've been following your career from afar and am so proud of what you've accomplished. My life has taken some unexpected turns. Jason and I divorced 2 years ago. I've recently become engaged to Thomas Wilson. You wouldn't know him, he's from Chicago. We're planning a September wedding at Alpine Meadows Resort. I'd really like for our family to be complete that day, including you. Lily is 9 now and asks about her aunt sometimes. I've told her how smart and successful you are. Please consider coming. We have a lot to talk about. Harper. No acknowledgement of my 18th birthday eviction. No mention of our parents' role in our estrangement. Just a casual invitation, as if we'd drifted apart through mutual neglect rather than their deliberate actions. I showed the email to Daniel that evening, watching his expression shift as he read. "What are you thinking?" he asked carefully when he finished. "I don't know," I admitted. Part of me wants to ignore it completely. Part of me is curious, and there's my niece to consider. She's innocent in all this. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you," he assured me. "If you want to go, I'll be right beside you. If you want to delete the email and move on, I'll support that too." My next therapy session focused entirely on this unexpected communication. Dr. Winters, who had replaced Dr. Lynn when she retired, helped me explore my options. "Consider what you hope to gain from reconnecting and what boundaries you need to protect yourself," she advised. "You can attend without giving them power over your emotional well-being again." After a week of reflection, I replied to Harper with a brief message saying I would consider attending and asking for more details. What followed was a flood of information. The elaborate wedding would be held at an exclusive mountain resort 3 hours from my city. Thomas came from substantial wealth and was sparing no expense. The guest list included over 200 people. Harper attached photos of Lily, a smiling girl with blonde hair, who resembled Harper at that age. My parents reached out next awkward, stilted emails that made no reference to our years of estrangement. My mother wrote about wedding preparations and how Lily was excited about being a junior bridesmaid. My father sent a short message saying it would be good to have the family together again, as if our separation had been some minor misunderstanding rather than their choice to discard me. As the wedding date approached, Harper's communications became more frequent and detailed. The registry included items costing thousands of dollars. The venue featured mountain views and luxury accommodations. Thomas's family was flying in from across the country. Each message reinforced the impression that this wedding was as much about displaying wealth as celebrating love. I decided to attend with clearly established boundaries and Daniel as my support system. Shopping for an appropriate outfit became an unexpectedly emotional experience. I wanted to look successful and put together without appearing to try too hard. A delicate balance that reflected my complicated feelings about the reunion. "You look beautiful," Daniel said sincerely when I modelled the navy blue dress I'd finally selected. Strong and elegant. The night before our drive to the resort, I had a panic attack, the first in years. Sitting on our bathroom floor at midnight, gasping for breath, I seriously considered cancelling the trip altogether. "We can turn around any time," Daniel reminded me as he held my hand. "You're in control here. Remember that." The next morning, we loaded our overnight bags into Daniel's reliable Subaru and began the journey to Alpine Meadows Resort, each mile bringing me closer to the family who had once thrown me away like garbage. Alpine Meadows Resort emerged from the winding mountain road like something from a luxury travel magazine. Stone and timber buildings nestled among tall pines, with the dramatic backdrop of mountain peaks still holding patches of snow even in September. A uniformed valet approached as we pulled up to the main lodge. "Checking in for the Wilson-Taylor wedding," he asked, noting the overnight bags. We nodded, suddenly feeling underdressed, despite our carefully selected business casual attire. The lobby featured soaring ceilings, a massive stone fireplace, and furniture that looked both rustic and extremely expensive. Our room was similarly impressive. King-bed private balcony overlooking the mountains, complimentary champagne, chilling in an ice bucket. The wedding guests were clearly being treated to the full luxury experience. "So this is how the other half lives," Daniel commented as we unpacked. "No wonder your sister was eager to marry into this." I had just finished changing for the rehearsal dinner when my phone buzzed with a text from Harper. "We're in the Aspen suite getting ready. Come see me before dinner." My heart raced as Daniel and I navigated the resort hallways following signs to the suite. I paused outside the door, taking a deep breath before knocking. Harper opened the door herself, and for a moment we both froze, taking in the changes 9 years had wrought. My sister still had the same heart-shaped face and blue eyes, but maturity had refined her features. Her blonde hair was now elegantly styled in an updo, and her figure had the slight softness that often comes after childbirth. "Arletta," she exclaimed, pulling me into an enthusiastic hug that I returned stiffly. "You look amazing, I knew you would. Come in, come in." The suite was a flurry of activity, bridesmaids in matching robes, makeup artists with their cases spread across tables, champagne glasses scattered everywhere. Harper pulled me through the chaos, introducing me to her friends without acknowledging our years apart. "And this is my fiancé, Thomas," she said, presenting a tall man with salt and pepper hair, despite being only in his mid-30s. He had the confident demeanor of someone who is never worried about money. "Harper has told me so much about you," Thomas said warmly, shaking my hand. "The successful marketing executive's sister. I'm glad you could make it." I wondered exactly what Harper had told him about me and our family history, but before I could respond, a small voice called out, "Mom, is that Aunt Arletta?" A girl with familiar blue eyes pushed through the crowd of bridesmaids. Lily was the perfect blend of Harper and Jason, Harper's delicate features, with Jason's darker blonde hair and dimpled smile. "Hi, Lily," I said, kneeling to her level. "It's really nice to meet you." "Mom says you live in a city and have an important job making commercials," she said with the directness of children. "Something like that." I smiled. "I help companies figure out how to tell people about their products." Our conversation was cut short by the arrival of my parents. 9 years had aged them considerably, my father's hair now completely grey, my mother's face lined in ways I didn't remember. They hesitated when they saw me, as if unsure of the protocol for greeting a daughter they had thrown out. "Arletta," my mother finally said, stepping forward for an awkward hug that felt more like a social obligation than a maternal embrace. "You look well." My father settled for a stiff nod and "good to see you," before turning his attention to Lily. The rehearsal dinner that evening was held in a private dining room with panoramic mountain views. Circular tables draped in white linen held elaborate centerpieces of mountain wildflowers and crystal vases. The menu featured locally sourced ingredients, prepared by a chef whose name Harper dropped repeatedly, apparently expecting everyone to recognize the culinary celebrity. Daniel and I were seated at a table with distant relatives and Harper's college friends, rather than with immediate family. Throughout the evening, I overheard snippets of conversation about Harper's difficult past and struggle as a young single mother. After Jason left, she had to rebuild everything on her own, one bridesmaid was telling another. "She's so brave." The narrative Harper had constructed bore little resemblance to reality. In her version, she had apparently struggled alone without the support system of our parents, who had literally evicted me to provide her with more space. Jason had left, rather than been pushed out himself after their relationship deteriorated. During the dessert course, I excused myself to use the restroom and encountered Thomas's sister Grace in the hallway. With her brother's same salt and pepper colouring, but a more analytical gaze, she introduced herself and immediately cut to the chase. "So you're the sister who's been mysteriously absent from family photos all these years," she said. "Thomas believes Harper's story about you two growing apart after you moved away for work, but I've always thought there was more to it." Her directness was refreshing after an evening of pretense. "There's definitely more to it," I confirmed. "I thought so." Grace nodded. "Harper has a way of rewriting history to suit her current needs. Thomas is besotted and doesn't see it, but some things don't add up. She talks about struggling as a single mother, but then mentions family support in the next breath. Our parents have always been very supportive of Harper," I said carefully. "Just Harper." Grace raised an eyebrow. Before I could respond, Harper appeared in the hallway, her smile tightening slightly when she saw us together. "There you are." "Thomas is about to make a toast," she said, linking her arm through mine possessively. "Grace, I hope you're not interrogating my sister. She's too polite to tell you to mind your own business." Grace smiled placidly. "Just getting acquainted with family. See you both inside." As Harper steered me back toward the dining room, she whispered, "Grace can be nosy. Best not to get into family history with her." I wondered how much of that history Thomas knew and how much Harper had conveniently edited out. That night in our resort room, Daniel and I discussed the evening's revelations. "She's created an entirely fictional past," I said, still processing the audacity. "In her version, she's the struggling heroine who overcame adversity, not the golden child who was given everything at my expense." "Are you going to correct the record?" Daniel asked. I considered the question carefully. Not unless directly asked. This weekend isn't about settling old scores. I just want to see Lily show them I've survived without them and then go back to our real life. My resolve to remain above the drama would be tested sooner than I expected. The wedding day dawned clear and perfect, as if even the weather bent to Harper's will. While the bridal party sequestered themselves for hair and makeup, Daniel and I enjoyed a hike on one of the resort's easier trails. The physical activity and mountain air helped clear my head and strengthen my determination to get through the day with dignity. When we returned to our room to prepare for the ceremony, I found a message from Harper asking me to come to the bridal suite. Leaving Daniel to shower, I made my way back to the Aspen suite, where the morning's preparations had reached a frenzied pitch. "Arletta," Harper called when she spotted me. "Thank goodness. Melissa has food poisoning and can't be a bridesmaid. I need you to take her place." I blinked in surprise. "What, Harper? I don't have a dress. I haven't been to any of the rehearsals." "The resort has an amazing seamstress who can alter Melissa's dress in time," Harper interrupted. "Please, Arletta, I need you." The irony of those words, "I need you," after years of abandonment, wasn't lost on me. I appreciate being asked, but I think I'd be more comfortable as a guest. Besides, Daniel and I were planning to sit together. Harper's face fell into the disappointed expression she had perfected since childhood, the one that usually resulted in her getting her way. "I thought this would be a special moment for us to reconnect as sisters, but I understand if you're not ready." The guilt trip was so familiar it was almost comical. "I'm happy to help with anything else you need," I offered as a compromise. Harper brightened slightly. "Actually, could you take my phone and respond to any vendor messages I'm getting bombarded, and my maid of honor is useless with that stuff." I agreed to this more reasonable request, taking her phone and finding a quiet corner of the suite to check her messages. Most were congratulatory texts from friends, but there were also several coordination messages from the photographer, florist, and wedding planner. As I was responding to the photographer about family photo timing, a text from Jason appeared on the screen. "Can't wait to see you later. Last night was amazing. Still our secret." My finger hovered over the notification heart, suddenly pounding. Before I could decide whether to open it, more texts appeared in rapid succession. "Thomas has no idea, right? Remember to delete these messages like usual. Love having our special arrangement even with the wedding happening." I shouldn't have looked. I knew I shouldn't, but faced with evidence that Harper was cheating on Thomas with her ex-husband, I opened the message thread. What I found was worse than I imagined: explicit messages dating back months, plans for secret meetings and discussions about how Harper would maintain access to Jason for their needs, even after marrying Thomas. There were references to using Lily as the excuse for their continued connection, and disturbingly mercenary comments from Harper about Thomas's wealth being her primary interest in the marriage. "Found anything interesting on my phone?" I looked up to find Harper standing over me, her expression knowing rather than embarrassed or angry. She seemed almost smug. "You're having an affair with Jason," I said quietly, stating the obvious. "It's complicated," she shrugged. "Jason and I have history. Thomas knows I continue to see him because of Lily." "Does Thomas know you're sleeping with him?" Her smile turned cold. "That's none of your business. Now I'll take my phone back." As I handed it over, ethical questions raced through my mind. Should I tell Thomas? Was it my place to intervene? Before I could decide, Harper took the decision out of my hands. "Don't even think about telling Thomas," she said, reading my expression perfectly. "Who do you think he'll believe, his loving fiancé or the estranged sister who suddenly appears after years of absence? Besides, why would you care about a man you just met yesterday?" She had a point, though, not an ethical one. My word against hers would likely accomplish nothing except creating more drama. I excused myself from the bridal suite, mind racing with this new information as I returned to Daniel. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he commented when I entered our room. "Worse," I replied, and told him everything I'd discovered. Daniel whistled low. "That's a lot to process before a wedding ceremony. What are you going to do?" I genuinely didn't know. The moral dilemma plagued me as we dressed for the ceremony, me in my carefully selected navy dress, Daniel handsome in his charcoal suit. Was I obligated to tell an innocent man he was being deceived, or should I stay out of business that wasn't mine? "Whatever you decide, I support you," Daniel assured me as we made our way to the garden where the ceremony would be held. The wedding setting was undeniably beautiful. Rows of white chairs on manicured lawn, a flower-covered arch framing the Mountain View String Quartet, playing softly as guests were seated. Thomas stood at the front, looking nervous but happy, clearly having no idea about his bride's betrayal. The ceremony began with the traditional procession of bridesmaids and groomsmen. Lily walked down the aisle, scattering rose petals, beaming with pride in her junior bridesmaid dress. Then the music changed. Guests rose and Harper appeared on our father's arm, radiant, in a designer gown that probably cost more than my annual salary. As vows were exchanged and rings presented, I kept waiting for my conscience to force me into action, but I remained silent, deciding this wasn't my mess to fix. If Harper's deception came to light, it would happen without my intervention. I hadn't counted on Jason's ego or impulsiveness. Just as the officiant reached the "speak now or forever hold your peace" portion, a line I thought was only included in movies, there was a commotion at the back of the garden. Jason appeared disheveled and determined, striding down the aisle as guests murmured in confusion. "I can't let this happen," he announced loudly. "Thomas deserves to know the truth." Harper's face drained of colour. "Jason, don't do this. Think about Lily." But Jason was beyond consideration. "Harper has been sleeping with me throughout your entire engagement," he told Thomas bluntly. "Last night included." The collective gasp from the guests was audible. Thomas stared at Harper, shock and betrayal written across his features. "He's lying," Harper insisted. "He's jealous and trying to ruin our day." "Show him your phone," Jason challenged. "Show him our messages from this morning." I sat perfectly still, watching the scene unfold without needing to participate. The karma I had secretly hoped might eventually find Harper had arrived spectacularly without any assistance from me. Thomas held out his hand for Harper's phone. When she hesitated, his expression hardened. "If there's nothing to hide, let me see," he said quietly. "This is ridiculous," my mother interjected, standing from her front row seat. "We're not going to let this jealous man ruin Harper's special day." But Thomas was already scrolling through the messages Jason had directed him to find. His face told the story before he spoke. "The wedding is off," he announced, voice tight with controlled anger. "I apologize to my family and friends who traveled to be here." As he turned to leave, Harper grabbed his arm desperately. "Thomas, please. We can work through this. I love you." "You love my money," he corrected coldly. "That much is clear from these messages." The carefully orchestrated wedding dissolved into chaos. Guests whispered and stared. The wedding planner fluttered helplessly. My parents attempted to control the situation, suggesting everyone move to the reception area while the misunderstanding was sorted out. In the midst of the commotion, Harper's desperate gaze found me. Her expression shifted from shock to fury in an instant. "You," she accused, pointing at me. "You showed Jason the messages. You planned this." All eyes turned in my direction. I stood slowly, keeping my composure. "I saw the messages because you asked me to manage your phone," I stated calmly. "But I didn't show them to anyone. This is between you, Jason, and Thomas." "Liar!" Harper shrieked. "You've always been jealous of me. You planned this revenge for years." My mother joined Harper's accusation. "Arletta, how could you do this to your sister after she graciously included you today?" The absurdity of being blamed after remaining silent finally broke my resolve to stay above the fray. 9 years of stored truth came pouring out. "Graciously included me," I repeated incredulously. "Let's talk about graciousness, shall we? Let's talk about throwing your daughter out with garbage bags on her 18th birthday to make room for your pregnant favourite. Let's talk about abandoning me to homelessness while renovating my bedroom for Harper and her baby. Let's discuss how none of you checked if I was safe, had food or shelter." The garden had gone completely silent. Even Harper seemed stunned by my outburst. "That's not how it happened," my father attempted weakly. "That's exactly how it happened," I countered. "I slept in my car for a week before a teacher took me in. I worked 3 jobs to survive while finishing high school. Not one of you ever asked if I was okay." Thomas, who had paused his exit during this revelation, looked between Harper and my parents with new understanding. "You never mentioned any of this," he said to Harper. "You said your sister moved away for work opportunities." "It's complicated family history," my mother intervened. "Arletta has always been prone to exaggeration." "I have no reason to exaggerate," I replied evenly. "I built a successful life without any help from my family. I came here today not for revenge, but to see if there was any relationship worth salvaging with my niece." I've sat quietly while Harper constructed her fictional narrative about struggling as a young mother, knowing she had every advantage, including literally taking my room and displacing me. I didn't expose her affair or plan this confrontation, but I won't stand here and be blamed for the consequences of her choices. Grace, who had approached during my speech, nodded in understanding. "I knew there was more to the story," she said. "Thomas, I tried to tell you something felt off about Harper's family history." My parents attempted to usher me away from the gathered guests, but Thomas's family formed a protective barrier around me. "I think we've all heard enough," Thomas's father said firmly. I suggest you focus on your daughter's mess instead of attacking the only honest person here. The wedding party dispersed in various directions, guests awkwardly collecting belongings, the catering staff unsure whether to continue preparations, Harper sobbing dramatically as my parents attempted to comfort her, while simultaneously damage controlling with Thomas's family. In the confusion, a small hand slipped into mine. Lily looked up at me with solemn eyes, too wise for her 9 years. Are you really my aunt? She asked. I knelt to her level. Yes, I am, and I'm sorry we're meeting for the first time in such a crazy situation. Mom doesn't always tell the truth, she confided in a whisper. I knew there was more family I didn't know about. Would you like to know me? I asked gently. She nodded. Can I maybe visit you sometime in the city? I'd like that very much, I told her, heart opening to this innocent child caught in adult drama. We'll have to ask your mum when things calm down, but I'd love to be part of your life. Daniel appeared at my side, offering silent support as always. Together we made our way back to our room to collect our belongings, planning an early departure from the wedding that wasn't. As we packed, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. To my surprise, it was Thomas asking if Daniel and I would join his family for dinner in the resort's restaurant, instead of attending the now-cancelled reception. Grace and my parents would like to get to know you better, he explained. And frankly, I could use some honest company after today's revelations. We accepted the unexpected invitation, spending the evening with Thomas's warm, straightforward family, who seemed genuinely interested in my life and career. By meal's end, I had exchanged contact information with Grace, and promised to meet Thomas for coffee when he visited our city for business. As we drove home the next morning, the mountain resort shrinking in the rearview mirror, I felt a surprising sense of peace rather than vindication. The spectacular karma at Harper's wedding hadn't been my doing, but perhaps it had been necessary not just for justice, but for truth. 6 months later, fragments of information reached me through the small connection I maintained with Lily. Harper was struggling financially after losing access to Thomas's resources. My parents faced social consequences in our hometown, where the wedding disaster story had circulated widely. Jason had leveraged the situation to renegotiate custody arrangements for Lily, and Lily, innocent, perceptive Lily, now spent one weekend each month with Daniel and me in the city. We visited museums, baked cookies in our kitchen, and slowly built the aunt-niece relationship that had been denied for 9 years. Her presence in my life became an unexpected gift from the wreckage of Harper's failed wedding. A year after the wedding that wasn't Daniel proposed on my 28th birthday, a date that now held joy instead of trauma. We planned a small ceremony with chosen family, Zoe and her parents, Ms. Patterson, who had saved me, at 17 colleagues who had become friends, and yes, Lily as our junior bridesmaid. Do you ever regret not having your parents at your wedding? Daniel asked as we addressed invitations. I considered the question honestly. I mourn the parents I deserved but never had, I answered finally. But I don't regret excluding the parents who excluded me first. We're building something better, a family based on choice and love, rather than obligation and favoritism. The journey from homeless 18-year-old to confident, successful woman with a loving partner and promising future wasn't one I would have chosen. But standing on the other side of that difficult path, I recognized how the hardship had forged my strength, resilience, and capacity for genuine relationship. The family that threw me away with garbage bags on my 18th birthday had unwittingly set me free to create a life far richer than the one they offered. Have you ever witnessed karma deliver the perfect response to someone who wronged you? Or have you found that building your own happiness was the best revenge? Share your stories in the comments below. And if this tale of family betrayal and ultimate triumph resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with others who might need to hear that being discarded doesn't determine your worth. Thank you for listening to my journey from garbage bags to grace, and remember that sometimes the family we choose is far more valuable than the one we're born into.